Now today was meant to be a different video. I was going to talk about Suicide Squad, but I just realised I really don't care about that game at all. I have looked at loads of gameplay footage and it looks boring. But today I'm going to talk about Capcom instead, and how the 30 FPS plague is coming back to the consoles at a rapid pace, and it shouldn't really be accepted. So, Dragons Dogma 2 is coming out soon. Recently I've been playing Dragons Dogma 1 for the first time. I've never played it before. I've heard good things and bad things about the game, so I thought I'll try it out for myself, considering it was on sale. And I got it for the equivalent of about $3, so I couldn't really complain whether the game's good or bad, but I'm enjoying my time with it. I'm playing on PC, as I usually do. I play most of my games on PC, but Capcom have put the PC specs for Dragons Dogma 2 out on the Steam store page, and I've got to tell you, a 2080 is required, or a 6700 for the recommended specs. That is ridiculous. But they are targeting that on 4K 30 FPS and might drop in graphical intensive scenes. I'm just inserting this section afterwards, but Capcom have been really good at making PC ports recently. The RE engine is amazing, but correct me if I'm wrong, but this game is probably the first one they have made an open world in the RE engine, and I'm thinking that's where they may have a problem. The RE engine might not be designed for open world, but that's just my speculation. I don't know much about video game development, so this could be a possibility. Dropping frame rate from 30 FPS is unacceptable, because 30 FPS is completely unacceptable in the first place. And I know whoever's going to be watching this video, if you're a console peasant, you're going to be defending it, saying 30 frames per second is perfectly fine. It's not. Stop kidding yourselves. It really isn't. 30 FPS is trash. It's the reason I will not play Bloodborne anymore, because they refuse to do anything with that game, and Bloodborne is a stuttery mess, even on the PlayStation 5. But I'm not here to talk about Bloodborne. I'm going to talk about Dragons Dogma 2. The game looks really promising, but having these PC specs only means one thing for the consoles. It's a very high possibility that it is going to be 30 FPS on the consoles. So there's an article from PC Focus on Twitter, and I don't really know how credible PC Focus really are. I have seen some things they have posted and they are full of shit sometimes. But it says that Dragons Dogma 2 is reportedly runs at 30 FPS on consoles, according to the Japanese insider Rumor. So take it with a grain of salt, but those PC specs do tell me a different story. The possibility of this being a 30 FPS locked on consoles is very high. And confirmed that the game is only going to have one game save slot, which is weird, with an autosave feature, which most games have anyway. But this is a game designed around multiple playthroughs to do different classes. Okay, you could probably change class while you're playing your normal story, which is perfectly fine, but having different types of classes to play at different times would be a good way to do it. You know, like the Dark Souls series does it, where you have about 10 game save slots and you can just fuck around in whichever character build you've made. So yeah, that's a weird one. I'm wondering if they're going to monetize that. Kind of reminds me of something another Japanese studio did at one point, paying for game save slots. And this was only to be confirmed with a Google search as well, to see that I only had one game save slot, which is really weird. All this was highlighted to me, by the way, by a video from a guy called Joe from Seattle. He did a really great video to cover this. I think you should watch it. There's some people in his comment section roasting him about the being able to change your characters and stuff. I was like, no, they didn't listen to what he was saying properly. But yeah, I recommend you watch his video. And these are my thoughts on this. Those recommended specs for PC is outrageous. I know my PC could properly handle it at 4K 60, probably no problem, even though I play at 2K. But that is not the point. You shouldn't have to buy a $2,000 to $3,000 PC just to run one game at 60 FPS. That is bullshit. Don't get me wrong, you could probably turn down them settings to get 60 FPS, but the game might look like dog shit. I mean, it is really nice to run your game at 2K, max settings, with ray tracing on, all the bells and whistles. The games look fantastic. But the sacrifice you have to make to maybe get 60 FPS on possibly what would have been the equivalent to my old PC, which was a 2070 Super, I'm guessing that would have had a problem running this game at my desired settings. So yeah, I do feel for the people that have normal things to pay like bills and stuff that prioritize their life more than their gaming habits do. So not everybody has got a super powered PC rig to be able to play this game at max settings at 60 FPS, but for the console side, with it being locked to 60 FPS, if there's possible frame drops on that one in graphically intensive areas, it's going to be a shit show. And these new consoles are supposed to be targeting 60, 120 FPS. As we'll see from MBG here, he's actually quite displeased. I normally roast MBG. He deserves a bit of a roasting for this one, but there's an agreement to be had as well. So let's go and see what he has to say.
Well, anyway, I'll look up Dragons Dogma. Oh, you're saying people are coming to that conclusion because all the footage shown so far is in 30 FPS? Okay, well, no, I wouldn't assume that means there isn't going to be a 60 FPS performance, because, I mean, with like almost all games, we see them shown off in their 30 FPS fidelity modes to, you know, make them look as good as they can. But I would imagine that that would be interesting if they come out and they're like, you're saying an insider from Japan said it is so. IGN Japan put it up. Okay. Maybe that's why it's not gaining a lot of traction yet. An insider source confirmed it. And only one save slot. Ooh. That's weird. One save slot. Well, how do you guys feel about that? I mean, I'll be honest, man. I've gotten so used to having 60 FPS per... Yeah, that to me, that is an L. I've gotten so used to having 60 FPS performance modes. It is tough. It is tough for any game to just come out and be like, sorry, you can only play it at 30. I could still play games at 30.
What?
I can. Like, I'm not gonna... I know that there are some people who, you know, they make it seem like, oh, I could never go back to 30. I'm not that way. Like, I can readjust to it.
Are you crazy? Is that your problem?
But, yeah, I can't deny that the 60 FPS is like, I mean, it feels like a must, you know, at this point, where it's like, come on. Like, almost everybody is doing a 60 FPS performance mode.
So MBG obviously doesn't like 30 FPS. He's gotten used to having 60 FPS on most of his games now. But to say that you can readjust to 30, nah. Trust me, I've tried it. Zelda Tears of the Kingdom was hard to play because the frame drops on the Nintendo Switch were horrible. It's about time Nintendo got their act together and made a new console, or just release their games on PC. Then we can have 60 FPS all the way around. And like I said about Bloodborne, I can't go back to Bloodborne because Bloodborne is a shit show, even on PS5. And on top of all this, Capcom has been doing other shitty practices, like including DRM in their old games. So the DRM they've been including is called Enigma. It's a weird DRM. I don't know much about it. Some ordinary gamers made a video about it. I listened to it. I watched it. It doesn't seem shady, but what's the point in putting DRM in your old games? I don't understand it. Those games have been bought. They've been pirated. They've been cracked already. Who gives a shit about your old games? Just give people the files. And they used the cancerous De Novo in all their new games as well. De Novo is a horrible DRM which tanks performance on PC and nobody likes it. Nobody wants it. Capcom should take a page out of Larian Studios' book. Because Larian Studios sold you Baldur's Gate 3 and said, here you go, here are the files, they're yours. You don't even need Steam to run them. Which is probably the best thing ever because that game still sold amazingly. Without a DRM, they didn't feel the need to incorporate a DRM and they just gave everyone the game. So when the servers go offline to no longer be able to download that game 20, 30 years in the future, maybe, I don't know what's going to happen. If you have them game files installed, you can still boot up the game on the current version and run it, no problem. But these other games where they inevitably shut down the servers for them. So in the great words of Ono Italics, what should you do with this game? Wait for the pirated version because it's probably going to run a shit ton better. And that's what a lot of people will tell you to do these days, on PC especially. Just pirate these games because you will get the better version. But I would like to see how this one plays out. I can't wait to see the actual performance of this game. Are they going to be locked to 30 FPS on consoles? It's highly likely, and the one save file thing is just bullshit. But I highly encourage you to watch Joe from Seattle's video, and that'll do it for me. This was supposed to be a different video today. This is just a quick off the cuff thing because I found out about it recently, and now I've got to go and edit this shit. Like, comment, share, subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one.